Welcome, everyone. Thank you for being here. Oh, welcome, everyone. Thank you for being here. This is amazing. All right. Wait, hold on. I just approved something I didn't want to approve. All right. Thank you all for being here. I don't know if I, what I just did. All right. Well, thank you all for being here and taking the time. We're going to be talking today about permaculture, one of my favorite topics, one of the fundamental topics that I rely upon in my daily life, and I rely upon for planning in my life, that I rely upon for designing my life. And all my success has come through intentionally designing it. It didn't happen by accident, and it didn't happen usually the first time. I had to figure things out, had to do things to arrive where I have, and it has been by design and tinkering and getting closer and using those first principles thinking of permaculture and really the permaculture lens and mindset. So all of these, the final, I don't know if you guys read the title for the final um, talk where it's going to be about the permaculture mindset. Rich, would you mind being co-host? I invited you. All right, sweet. Everybody, thank Rich for being co-host and letting everyone in so that I can just move on and start presenting. I appreciate you all. Thank you for taking the time, and let's get into it. Let's dive in. All right. Okay. Size it up right there. I think that's pretty good. All right, welcome everyone to Design for Resilience with Permaculture. And resilience is really a form of abundance, and resilience we associate with safety, but it's also strength. It's also what we want our businesses, our communities, our inner selves to be more like. We want to be more resilient. So, we're going to be talking holistically. You know what I mean? We're gathering a lot of things together, today. So that's one of the beauties of permaculture is you see the connections between things instead of siloing out, right? So I want to start here. And I know that it would seem we're going to Downerville all of a sudden, and everyone's like, what? Right? But it's really important to start here to show how good things can get and how we can fix things. So, I'm not trying to spread fear, or a doubt or any of those things. Actually, I just want to show you the contrast because we have to look at our history to understand where we've been. And we've had dust bowls. This is a huge part of the history of America. We had that dust cloud carrying soil so far, and another dust cloud just like it brought it all the way from the Midwest to Washington, D.C. And so this is a very dramatic, terrifying thing that does happen. I've seen this happen on a small scale all over California. They till it the wrong time of year, everything's dry, and then suddenly you have a cloud and the soil's going. So this is an article. You can look up this article. You can read about this. This is Midwest. This is, about how much soil was lost. It's much more dramatic to just see it. We're talking about feet of soil. You know, it's a lot, not a little. It's a lot, and I definitely think the guy on the right would be actually in it, pre intervention would be on a higher level, even more so because just doing nothing is doing something. So they're not being regenerative. What is what I'm trying to say, and we have dead zones. We've all this eutrophication. You've got the death of the coastlines in many areas. In California, off of Santa Barbara, the coast there near Catalina Island, you have you know tens of thousands. I think it's tens of thousands or is it hundreds of thousands. I can't remember which exact number. Any of it's bad, but we're talking about an enormous amount of DDT in barrels was dumped there when DDT was made illegal. And so How do you retrieve it? It's leaking from them already. So as you build it up, it'll like pour out, right? And so, whoo, so it's like a huge, huge problem. This is common almost everywhere. You'll find these kinds of problems almost everywhere. There is literally a broken arrow somewhere off the coast of the east coast with a nuke in it, and they never found it. So, yeah, there's a bunch of things in the ground and in the coastlines that are just toxic. You know what I mean? And so we've got these dead zones that are very real, and and we've had economic depressions of all sorts, and our systems are really built to fail. And this is something that, planned obsolescence is something that many of us we've learned about, we've heard about, and that's part of the reason why, we grew up maybe a little bit hopeless, a little bit depressed. I certainly did. I remember my brother like going rollerblading, and this kind of dates us to a certain era, doesn't it? We were rollerblading at night, and back before you didn't wear pads or any of those kinds of things, you just rollerbladed and broke things. And so we're rollerblading at night, and he turns to me and goes, and this is like shows, the early 90s, thing. My son goes, I mean, my brother goes, ignorance is bliss. If you only knew what our history was really like. And he was reading like Chomsky in high school. He was reading, all the terrible things that we have done over the course of history, and just held such disgust at how short-term thinking it was, how lacking integrity, lacking in ethics. And it really is those kinds of systems that lack integrity and ethics and the ability to make things better, they are built to fail because you don't get legacy out of that. You don't get like pride, like in the good kind of pride, not the bad pride, out of that. And so they are built to fail. And it's a boom and bust pattern. I don't know if you've seen it already, if you've lived long enough. If you've lived long enough, you've seen it, right? It's like 2008, kind of like lately. There's this inflation, boom, bust, ballooning, bubbles, all these kinds of words you've heard over and over again, and you've observed them, you've experienced them. And I actually, her great granddaughter, this woman I taught in high school in the Central Valley, and so she is one of those Okies, one of the people, essentially killed, you know what I mean? Because they weren't, but this community, and if you've ever read Grapes of Wrath, this is the community where those people were driven off the land, were kept homeless, and then essentially killed by flooding, you know? Yeah, and it's actually we're going to be talking about that flooding in a little bit. But that seasonal flooding, they knew it was coming. They knew where those people were camped, those landowners and the newly created police force in Grapes of Wrath. You should check that book out, by the way. Reading it now is very different, especially with like the homeless crisis being manufactured, all those kinds of things. You're like, wait, this was done before. And it's a boom and bust. It's pressure and then feeding in and building up a bubble and then pressuring it. And then it's a very common thing. And so, why are you talking about this, Matt? Well, they're not in alignment with nature. Because in nature, it's like a good investment. It keeps building in value. So the soil is here only because it built up. The soil is only here because plants grew and then died and then grew and then died, and the organic matter built up, and the microbes follow the succession and have a legacy and are regenerative and are return each season. That's what regenerative means. And so they weren't in alignment with nature, and that's the reason they didn't build up value and resilience. Because you look at, some of the strongest natural resources, they were resilient up to a point of extraction, right? And so we can like forgive many of our ancestors for, extracting from the system so hard that they're like, and then they go too far and then they're stuck, and then they didn't have the kind of longer term vision that we have because of the history we have, because of the information we have. Because, I mean, even when permaculture started, I mean, they had limited information. It was mostly information that they could get at the local university. I mean, you guys are old enough, you remember, you only got your information through the news, like the television, the newspaper, and the local library, or the university libraries, like the Step Up. You could access things there. Some of them can't take out. Some of them you need like university access. You know what I mean, to get into private collections. That was it. That was it. You could go to the Library of Congress itself and pull things out and view them. That's what Noam Chomsky did and became known for originally for. Yeah, he went and did the work. And anyway, I'm on a tangent here, but all these things aren't in alignment with nature because nature builds things up. And so, planned obsolescence, degenerative practices of all sorts and all types, uh, and short term thinking that partners with that degenerative thinking, they're one thing. And then the control based education and governance has people just accepting what they're told and given instead of seeing past that and seeing what's possible and pulling either themselves and their support from those things and then shifting their community in the right way. We'll talk about all this, but this is a story I think that many of us are familiar with. And what's missing from that story, what makes the difference is they don't have systemic resilience. And so they don't have health systemically. We see that now, don't we? We're lacking that. And then there's no efficiency, no true productivity. There's just extraction. Productivity is creation, right? And then there's no longevity because you know that there's a death date, right? There's an end date. You're going to be extracting at this rate. There's this only left, and then it's done. And so there's no growth in the near term and generational growth. Instead, it's actually like what they're extracting is what they're selling, right? And so we have to shift past this if we want true growth, if we want true productivity. And for some folks, I'm like, wow, you just changed those words in my head. That's what needs to happen. It's a mindset shift. That's why you can look up permaculture techniques, stories and case studies. They exist everywhere. Anecdotally, it's like boom, right? But it's the understanding that really allows us to create our own version of that in our own context, whether it be like a business, a service, a site, a landscape, a watershed, all of it, all of it. So well, what if we fix it, right? Well, we will be resilient in the face of shortages, right? We'll have our own abundance to rely upon, and then local abundance that keeps our economy going. Outages, we'll have, a decentralized grid. We'll have decentralized and also different forms of and different backups and localized responses to outages and backups. And then rationing. That won't need to happen because we're all going to have enough and we're going to have the ability to continue to create and produce locally, independent of anything above us that requires right. And in America, we've never really, in recent times, really experienced anything like that. We do it differently. But in the UK and Spain in recent years, they certainly have experienced this, right? So their greens, their lettuce, some of their vegetables, they've had rationing. And so supply chain disruptions, everyone's seen that. We've seen several good businesses go out of, you know, go go out of existence. And so, and I'm not talking just about mom and pop, regular like restaurants and all these things that were part of our culture and our local communities, but I'm talking about like Philip Callahan for the Callahan meter. I'm talking about, initially the bionutrient meter, when this all those disruptions happened, it went out of production. Now he's changing gears and creating something new. It is these disruptions that destroys businesses. Now, if it's all localized or bioregionalized, um, we can do something very different now, can we? And if it's you're relying upon someone else who's bioregional in an adjacent bioregion, that's something else too, right? So this kind of synergy that we're talking about is really holistic and it's big picture. And a lot of people are like, wait, I thought this was gardening, Matt. I thought this was like gardening 2.0. And I'm like, no, this will change everything in your life. This will change the way you view things, the way you evaluate things. So recalls, you know, this is why you grow your own food. This is why you buy local. This is why you buy biological. You know what I mean? And then droughts, we're going to get into that, and so much more. So it's also about living a meaningful life. Because if we don't have systems that we know we can pass on that'll be better to our kids, how can we look our kids in the eye and give them a hopeful view of the future? Right? Yeah. That's what it's really about. We need that generational growth to be true, that 7 generations into the future, that future care to be true. We really need that to be true because our kids are relying upon that and their hope, which is so important. That's everything. Your kids losing hope is the death of like your hope, as parents, you know what I mean? And so I know that this is a path forward that is meaningful because it's integrity based, because it is both economically correct, like you're going to build and then protect your foundation of your natural capital in such a way that it's going to make a strong, resilient economy and then create a legacy so that your child, or your son can take over. Uh, but it's also the case that it's in congruence with taking care of the land, seeing the food's healthier. You know what I mean? It's beautiful. It's beautiful. So if you live a life of integrity as well, there's an inner resilience that is yours. That's why it's so important that we do this kind of work because when we live in integrity, when the money we make is helping people, you're giving a very deep lesson to the children and the young people around you in your life. And also your peers and your family, but it's a lesson that you can't teach any other way but being it. And those lessons are the most powerful and resonate the deepest. So these are the kind of things that I care about. And maybe you do too, because there's all this practical, pragmatic, and big picture stuff. We can reverse desertification. A lot of people don't know this, but a lot of people do. So I'm not going to delve too deep into this, but I'm going to talk about one story. My friend Neil Speckman, he was like my pen pal early on in permaculture. We were really good buddies. And we still talk, we still write every once in a while, but we're both so busy doing very niche things. You know what I mean? He's working on restoring mangroves and restoring coastlines and doing saltwater based agriculture, which is amazing. Isn't that amazing? But this is where he began. And so he was working in Saudi Arabia on this site. Can you guys see how it's just rock, dust, and dirt? And there are some scrub trees, right? There's some scrub trees. Now, they put in swales. That's what they're doing here. We remember swales, right? They are on contour. They're flat spaces where water then can absorb into the landscape. Now, one rock dams, I don't know if you guys heard about these, but these are simple on contour again. So on a flat, so it'll follow flat wherever it goes. So it'll follow the contour line, which is just flat. It's the same elevation all the way through. You're going to put rocks. And so those rocks are going to create deposition. They're going to create edge effect, right? They're also going to put drag. So just like we're slowing down the winds, you know what I mean, and taming the wind with our systems and permaculture, we're also taming water. We're slowing it down. We're inducing meander, right? Belzedic, right? And this is also watershed artisans. They're wonderful. And and so you have all this deposition, you have all this slowing, complexing happening. And then, you're harvesting rainwater using this system. This is what Neil was doing. So he's got 3 inches of water per year sometimes. Sometimes he has, a 3 year drought, but they designed for that. And so when it did come, they were able to capture it. Look how beautiful that is, right? This is from a video. And so it went from this to this. Pretty amazing. And you can see, if you look to the right, you can see the drip the hose that's doing drip irrigation. And that's just with rainwater. And so this is the best side by side, I think. This shows you what it is like normally on the left, and then inside the swale, this is a future that you get the glimpse at, right? Do you guys see this? This is the transition. At the beginning of the transition gives you a glimmer of what it will be. And then these are the one rock dams. They did such a good job on these. Notice how they have the smaller rocks up top and the bigger rocks on bottom. And then they did it big. You can see the swales. You can see how it goes down on contour, stopping, stopping, stopping. And you can also see how sparse it is, right? But then here, we begin to see the grasses between the rock dams start to build up. And notice how all the way up until it's the rocky crags, the one rock dams go up. See that? And then look at this. And also you can notice that this is a video, this is an image from the video where you can watch the full story, the story of Albeda. And you'll hear Neil as the narrator and tells you the whole story. This is one of those things that just makes me proud to be his friend, but also just touches my heart deeply. And yeah, it's just so beautiful. You get to see the wind move through the grasses. It's thick, but you can still see those contour lines where the rock dams are. And look at this. It's just so beautiful. That swale is erased on both sides now. That predicted future has arrived. There's a beauty to it. And you can also see how in between these areas, it's still bare. And so these areas have to build up and they'll spread out and fill in between the spaces as it has in some areas. But it is still growing. It is still changing. But wait, before I get any further, who am I? Well, I'm a friend of Neil Speckman. That's why I got all those pictures. Neil gave them to me, and that the stills from the video are from that video, the story of the Albeda project. Please feel free to check that out. But I'm Matt Powers. I used to be a musician. I was a ski racer growing up, and my wife got cancer early on in our marriage when our son was a baby, and it kept coming back. And I raised my boys in the garden because growing our own food, growing it regeneratively with permaculture was the only thing I could control, and controlling our environment as best I could was the way I could do it. And so we had a lot of fun. My boys were raised learning permaculture, seed saving, gardening, thinking holistically. And I got really into seed saving actually is what really happened, at a deep, deep level. That was where my first niche started to dig down. We'll be talking about niches today a lot. And then I wrote that book and I started doing these videos. My amaranth video went viral. I don't know if you've seen the giant amaranth video. That's the one that went viral, still is my most popular video. And then Jared Gettle asked me to come out to Missouri and work with them. I became the spokesperson for Baker Creek Heirloom Seeds for a little while there. Many of you might know me from that time period, and so that's many of what people know how I got my start. It was permaculture helping me niche down into gardening at a deeper level, and then focusing on seeds, focusing on curriculum, and that was actually working for Jared was like the last job I ever had. And then after that, I became an entrepreneur, and I just did online courses and did books that paired with those courses, and then did all these other little books in between. And through that process, I became a soil expert and a seed farmer, and it was all to facilitate the bridge to a regenerative future. Because if you don't have kids and adults learning marketable skills for regenerative economy, how can you have workers enter the regenerative economy, right? So I created the curriculum and made it all standard based so it could be adopted into public schools everywhere. And in the process, I became a citizen scientist, and I work with scientists all over the world. And so I want to talk to you today a little bit more about this idea of desertification, because it's the real climate change, and it's the one with an actual, like, tangible, easily fixed solution, and one that has already been explored and proven, but doesn't, you know, submit itself easily to greenwashing. So the real climate change is desertification. When we talk about climates, we have Mediterranean climates, temperate climates, we have arid climates, we have tundra. I don't know if you guys remember this from like eighth grade, right? Social studies you know what I mean? We learned climates. The Köppen Geiger climate map shows us the common climates that we share across the globe so that you can use seeds from that climate, right? So climate is very specific, but certain brittle climates respond very poorly to overgrazing and tillage, and they turn into desertified landscapes very quickly. Other landscapes take longer, but still they can surrender to this very easily. So when we look at the history of desertification, it starts with the Fertile Crescent. It starts in the Loess Plateau. It starts where agriculture began. And so we destroyed these Mediterranean temperate climates, and we made them into deserts. And the soil was lost. Agriculture no longer could be sustained, and we abandoned these environments, went to other environments. So this is the common story. This is also dirt erosion of civilizations. This is why we all talk about, those of the people who know, that soil is the linchpin, the inner pin that goes on the spoke so that the wheel stays on. That's what a linchpin is from the original wagons, right? That's so key. Soil is the thing that will actually fix all these things, and when soil dies, all these other things fall apart. So that's what it is, and permaculture can reverse desertification 100%. So, so we talked about this before. We're talking about $14 a hectare per year for 9 years, and we can turn the original places that we originally desertified. You know what I mean? Like 10,000 years ago, and we can fix it. So this is a 10,000-year-old problem that was reversed in 9 years. And so you may know this story of the Loess Plateau. Green Gold is a great documentary. I love the fact that they had to privatize the land and actually allow for land ownership so that they could have ownership and empower the actual people and give them the ability to own the land and make money from the land themselves. That allowed this to, I love that. And so giving people autonomy, giving people choice, giving people ownership, it just, and a beautiful thing. And it's effective at any scale, right? So here's me on these sandy, silty, dead soil here in Texas, and very little soil organic matter, right? That's what you're gonna get in really sandy dirt, like soil that's degenerated. This is was just grazed and grazed and grazed. But when we double the soil organic matter, you can hold more nutrients, you can hold more microbes, and you see a direct result in the expression of your plants. So the problem, the soil being the problem here, is the solution. You fix the soil, that's the solution, right? So how is this all permaculture, Matt? I thought like we're talking earth care, people care, future care. I thought we're like, we're building like Hugel culture and we're doing like key line or key point gardens and all this stuff, keyhole gardens, and that's cool. But there's an overriding directive behind all this that encapsulates so much. The prime directive of permaculture is the only ethical decision is to take responsibility for our own existence and that of our children, make it now. And it's very clear that we must design and build regenerative systems. And that's why I focused on the education so that people could see it and understand it and then apply it in their own special, unique way. Because we really need people to be creatively responding to these problems. They just like nature is iterating out all these different niche responses and adaptations, so do we have to respond. And the uniformity, the education that most of us got was for to be a clerk in the British Empire. Do you guys know what I'm talking about? Like literally, and John Liu actually talks about this. John Taylor Gatto, of course, is the original person to talk about all this. The education system is designed to teach you to have clerical skills such that you can be taken out of any place in the empire and placed in another and be an office worker, an administrator. So most of us have this education around that, and we don't have the ability to create. And that's why this education, the permaculture education, is so important. And so Bill created these incredible visions as to what's possible, and most of it focused. And of course, he expands in the latter part of the book. So I've read it many times, but a lot of it is focused on our own site, taking responsibility for ourselves. And this is actually this is from my first book, but this is Wayne Fleming. He did the cover for Bill Mollison's Introduction to Permaculture. You might recognize the art. But most of it is this focus. And David Holmgren, even in Retro Suburbia, this his more recent book, focuses on mapping, focuses on local expression, but there's a great deal more philosophy and extrapolation and specification in David, and I really feel that Jeff's a beautiful mix of David and Bill, just like Darren is a beautiful mix of holistic management, keyline design, Bill, because Jeff and Bill, I mean Jeff and Darren Doherty are the proteges of Bill Mollison. But everyone has got these beautiful combinations of their education and expression that are different and valuable. So I really like the philosophy side that David brought because it helped us go outside and also opened up interpretation more, right? Because some of the words he used, some of the things he did, clanged a little bit, at times for other people like fair share, right? But that's not the point. The point was is that he started creatively applying these things and he expanded it past your own site and started looking at like in retro suburbia the larger community because he expanded that lens to be a little bit more abstract and a little bit more philosophical and I know we also see this around animals in Bill's work too, but he does it to the stoves, he does it to the community, he does it to the economy of the local community. So this is a great book, Retro Suburbia. This is one of the more recent books by David Holmgren. Might be his most recent book, but I know he's also working on another one. I don't know if it's out yet. So permaculture is really pragmatic because it gives you that common sense ability. And obviously, it's not common, but it gives you a pragmatic logic that you can use nature as a measurement tool and an assessment tool. And so it's very pragmatic. It affects the way you make decisions. So I like food storage, right? I like food storage that I don't have to process. I want it to hang out as long as possible. And then if it's nearing its end of its life, I can harvest the seeds and put the rest in the compost or eat it and then plant it the next year. And these are big. I don't know if you guys noticed. These are big. These look like they're not so big. They're big. Lots of food, super heavy, very thick fleshed. It's what we were aspiring to do, right? And and I love canning. But again, the less work, the less energy, energy return on energy investment invested, right? We got to look at that equation. I love seed saving too. There's something I'm always going to do. And then, and this is a form of food storage too, when some of these seeds we can eat as sprouts. So the excess seeds, the old seeds that I have that, you know, you know what I mean, are going to be less vibrant, less vigorous. You may plant them, but plant them at, 3 times the rate you normally would, so that the weak ones get weeded out, or you might eat them as sprouts. So, living food storage is the next level up, though. So we have these ideas, then we make them real. And this is the beginning, and then it turned into this. This is where we were. This is literally where we were, and I'm standing in the same spot. Okay, I'm standing in the same spot. Yeah. So it's also hidden in plain sight. So not only are we like, it's all food to us, the neighbors have no idea. Neighbors are like, what is going on, right? People, if they're trying to like steal food in the worst case scenario, aren't going to see this as food. So this hidden in plain sight, we can do this anywhere. We can transform sites. This is my original Central Valley, California site. Of course, this is our Washington site. We got sites all over. We moved so many times. Oh my gosh! So this is why I've got really good at building soil. Everywhere we go, I build soil. And one of the beautiful things about permaculture is the focus on community. So you could have friends come over, you might do a permaculture blitz, and then suddenly, man, you get that swale in there fast. That's how this happened. And so transformation doesn't have to take years. Oh yeah, and notice the spillways, folks. We got to have, it was a lot of rain in Seattle. We're right in Issaquah outside of Seattle, and so this is an incredible site. And speaking of water, when you're doing water harvesting, this was a huge focus in the work of David and Bill. This is Bill's book, and I'm doing it too. Today, and so many of these smaller things that we see. In my original book, I had like a tote. No, people have like these like memes online where they're like 55-gallon barrel. And like, no, one rain off of 1/4 of your roof will fill that whole tank. Like, boom, done. So it's incredibly important to recognize that. See the first flush diverter right there, the ball, that goes up to the top when it fills up with the water from the first flush, and then blocks it so that the rest can flow over. But I'm just here to tell you, you have so much water catchment that you can take on. Now, this is the site I'm on now. And as you can see, I've got some ambitious ideas here. The garden food forest is about half installed. The big garden is not installed because the well that was going to provide the water for it runs dry every summer if we use it. So what I did was, in that white box above the well, I put in, and the original idea was one good pond and then a spillway, but I got really excited because of the way the lay of the land appeared to me when I went back there to do the work, and I did something different that is a lot more water. So all the stuff to the right of the houses has not been installed yet, but but there these are the plans, and we've started on the left side. Right, we started with zone zero, move out, so we started installing the garden food forest right there by the houses. We did one of those circles by the houses, so one of those water tanks, and then I'll just show you this design, just so you know, because Pearl River Eco Design did the mapping below it. It's so nice. Doesn't he do a good job? Ben Missimer. I love you, Ben. Ben does such a great job. Ben was one of my students, and then he now works directly on all the maps for Jeff Lawton. So just an incredible, incredible relationship and community we all have, and we're all so deeply connected. So many of I was a student of Jeff's, and then a student of mine goes and works and now as a partner, a main partner with Jeff. So I love it. But all the underlying map is done by Ben, and it's so nice. It's so beautiful. All those kind of rudimentary, the green garden box, the water, the lines, the roads, the little water spigots. You know what I mean? See by the water, the little water spigots. Those are water pumps that I made. So I did this all on Keynote on top of his beautiful map. So when he does it, it's all real, hyper realistic when he creates, and does his full thing. I like to do it myself because I change things and adapt things. So he did the underlying map, and I always ask him. Actually, I've been working with Ben for several years too, because he does such good maps. He does LiDAR and does different layers and different ways that show the movement of water, and it's so good. And so I really like it because it allows me to see all these things and do all the work, but I do the map building myself, so that I can adapt it and play with it and do multiple versions and assess. And so anyway, because what you're about to see, right? This is the original intention. And then let's see what I did. Because this is the gardens. The gardens are looking good. We're building the green wall in the gardens. This looks good. This is right in between those two houses at the north part of the garden. Um, but let's watch this. So and all so this is the area where before I did anything. And I know you can't hear me on the video. It's okay. I'll just talk over it. So this is the first pond area. It's just red clay. It was already bare like this, and I just was like, this is meant to be. Now watch this. It was already blocked because of debris being pushed and accumulating. So accumulation, right? It's a sign. Permaculture design, you see it. You're like, huh, okay. It's flat here. Okay. Now watch what we do. So we're gonna now excavate. So this is the I cleared that upper area. We did this all cleared in like 15 minutes. I was really impressed with the machines. And my boys joined me a little bit in working with them. This was so much fun. And Oliver did a little bit of work. That was my main tool, but I wanted him to learn how to do it, so I asked him to come and check it out and work with us for a little bit. James wants to do this as a business. So we may own one of these eventually. And James might do this as a business, pond building here in Texas or elsewhere. So this is like was one of the this was the last week of him being 17, and he turned 18 at the end of it. So do you see how rough and tough? That's how hard the clay is, right? So, you know, this is gonna hold water, right? And so that we're building this. I'm just gonna fast forward through. It's getting deeper and deeper. It's pretty good. We've got some depth here. Oh, I gotta go back. Hold on. So we got these going. I just want to show you the first rain. Let me just show you the first rain. And so this was only 15 minutes of rain, less than an hour. Yeah. 9 o'clock to 10 o'clock, just a little bit shy of 10 o'clock, it stopped. Look, so we didn't use any measurements, and we did the swale perfectly flat because my son and I have been doing swales since he was a little kid. As you've seen, you know it. And so It's just amazing. One rain, it just worked so well. The tools, I mean, it would take us years to cut and dig as much as we dug. Watch this next area. So this is below all the catchment. This is after all the water above it's already been caught. So this is purely captured from rainwater that's happened in between because there's no overflows yet, right? So check this out. So we're going to go up here to that flat area, a little bit different now. This is the spillway right here. And look, already water. So when we're talking about water storage, we did this work in 4 days. So we built these two ponds in 4 days. 4 days. And this is the upper one. And then below is the lower one. So the I made a chain of ponds and giant swales. So this is what I did. So we have the current pond, and that's the current level of it in those images, but the future level when it fills all the way and holds. And and so many of you are like, I'm gonna pause it there. This absolutely creates fire resistance. I'm recharging the actual well by not doing sealed ponds. I'm doing what Sepp Holzer does. Water retention dams is what Zach Weiss does. And what happens is the entire landscape fills up with water first. And then when the pond fills up, it reflects an actual relationship with the landscape holding water all the way behind it, all the way through. So this kind of water retention creates water resistance by making the whole landscape wetter. And we've actually heard about fire resistance in many permaculture sites. There, and of course, there's pragmatic things like setting up sprinklers on your roof. Come on, folks, of course, do that, right? People are doing that. That really helps. But at the same time, it helps a lot if they have their own water and their own power. So if the county, because in California they do this, they shut off the water, they shut off the power so that people can't do these things. But if you have your own system, if it's gravity powered, right? And then you have that protection. But food forests, ponds, water retention in the landscape, all this creates fire resistance that's very real. That's anecdotally proven out by many people who have saved their homes. And I see it perennially online because I lived in for over a dozen years in California. So it's very real. It's a lot of water. And when you have an abundance of this water, it creates that resilience. When you have an abundance of seed, you have a seed bank. When you have an abundance of food, you have a business or a service or charity or a gift or a value added product, right? Where you condense it down, right? And then you can sell in the business, right? So we really are talking about layers of resilience. And it starts with the self, it starts with our mindset. Permaculture gives us the mindset of hope and seeing that the problem indicates the solution. And we need to just look to nature and see how it responds to these same exact problems and how it created the abundance that this problem is lacking in to fix the issue. And then we go out to the home. And this is normally where everyone stops with permaculture. And so they're like, oh, well, that's my neighbor. There. And it's like, well, your neighbor's going to be starving in that time period when everything's wrong. Your neighbor is going to be affected by that Great Depression. Your neighbor, right? And so our neighborhood is directly going to affect us in times that are hard. And when our neighborhood is resilient in the retro suburban perspective, the Holmgren conception of niching down into permaculture, that's his niche, right? That That's absolutely the case that we need to be thinking about that. And then the town and the city, this is the economic part. This is the community service part. This is the seed swaps, the gatherings, the communing. This is the this that's that. And then the bioregion, that's the larger economy, that's the watershed, that's the community sensors and protection and wild natural capital. It's like the zone 5 for the community. And if that's not resilient, then that's your clean air, clean water. Yeah, the fish, all the tertiary economies associated with those things. Yeah, layers of resilience. It's one of those ways that we can view permaculture and apply it. So we got to put our oxygen masks on first, right? We got to stand on higher ground, but we can scale. And we can scale. I want you to know that. It's a beautiful picture from a site that Darren Doherty worked on. Gorgeous, isn't it? Just beautiful. And in service, it doesn't have to just be commercial, folks. It can be a service. It could be restoring this. It could be volunteer based. It could be community based. And we can scale on our home site and as a business. Jean-Martin Frotier has proven that, of course, originally the market gardener was showcasing that he can make over $100,000 with a quarter of an acre. But then he went on to show that he can make market gardening perennial with a permaculture site with Quatre Temps Farm. And and it goes on and grows in depth and strength. This is the future. Investments that continue to mature and gain in true value. It's all the things that people like talk about are impossible. Nature makes possible. That's why we're here. That's why we're even here. So, or we can also niche down. So you can scale up, but you can also niche down. What do I mean by that? For me, it meant going into soil. But look at this. This looks familiar, doesn't it? I hope so. I am looking at the first principles involved, the like an ethics overlap, like permaculture, future care, earth care. This is the elements that create regenerative soil. It's the overlap of these things, the harmonious overlap. And a big part of what I did was take the minerals and the soil biology and show their relationship. I went down to the biochemistry. So there were chemistry camps and then biology camps, and they were fighting. And I was friends with both sides. And then I got really good at demonstrating and showcasing how these things work and communicating them visually. And then showcasing the answers and solutions. Because the problem is the solution, you're out of mycorrhizal fungi. Well, let's make some mycorrhizal fungi. Let's DIY it because it's permaculture. And then we scale from there. So I was like, well, I love pictures, but I want to see it. And then my audience got to make it real with me as I turned to microscopy, start innovating and creating new methods and new test methods and new insights come from new test methods and new insights lead to better decision making and clearer action. So so healthy soils beget healthy plants and beget healthy people and animals, and that was what I that's my niche. That became the niche for me because fixing the soils was fixing the food, which helps fix the health crisis that we are deeply in. And it's not just food. Permaculture is medicine, fiber, value-added products, and even art. We can do these things all in ways that enrich our mindset and get us closer together and closer to alignment with nature. And I mean, it even comes down to the pens we use, right? So you may have seen me in recent years, and you see I'm using fountain pens, and you're like, "Wow, that's really fancy, Matt." Fountain pens, they're like $12, and you can pass it on to your children. You can buy a stainless steel one, stainless steel nib, and then remember, before petrochemicals, you did this, fountain pens. And so all the original formulations from all the original companies that made fountain pen ink still exist. And they make it naturally still. So you can get natural inks in a pen that will last your whole life. You can give to your children and pass on and then replace the ink constantly. That's permaculture to me, right? We're using renewable, regenerative, derived inks in a format that can last, that's built to last. Yeah. Yeah. And you're like, wow, okay, all right. Well, I could see some things that could be permaculture right now that I'm doing. I hope you do, because it's about honoring, not shaming. It's about enlightening, not judging, and it's about empowering, not creating camps. That's what permaculture is about. It could, because everyone's doing something good, and you can start there. Okay, you can touch someone's heart, you can open a door, and make a change. And so for me, it's all very congruent. And and abundance is resilience at a community level. So when everyone has their unique abundance, that turns into sharing or economic or service. And then at a community level, you're filling in gaps and you're creating a safety net and creating an abundance so that it really allows people to help each other manage that abundance. That's what working and workers are, right? Initially. And then you have maybe the Amish thing where everyone's kind of like helping each other out, and they're trading time, and maybe you've got the Ithaca hour dollar, right? They trade an hour of work for an Ithaca dollar. It's a local economy thing. Anyway, before Bitcoin, there was Ithaca dollars, right? And then there was also in Sonoma County. Oh, anyway, this is something that is old and totally legal. You can have local currencies. This is why, like, you have coinage at, resorts and like like Disneyland, Vegas, and all these. You're allowed to have token economies. You're allowed to have your own local currency. So anyway, my point is that this abundance becomes resilience at a community level, and it's a beautiful thing. It's something your children can sense and feel, because it's number one, it's community cohesion. And it's also because it's resilience at a community level, there's a gratitude for the other person and for our community, which is in many ways a felt thing. So, yes, a community is literally when you interact with people and then those people come into groups. But there's also this third effect of a community where you simply have gratitude for the group, and that you have this group identity. And it's really kind of this abstraction, but we feel it. It's very tangibly felt. And so in permaculture, we feel that community, don't we? We feel tied together by this deep understanding that the world can be a better place, that our hearts, this is like Charles Eisenstein, right? Our hearts know that a better world is possible and yearns for it. We know it's there. And then when we start working with nature, it's like, oh, 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 this is real. And then you see these heroes like Neil Speckman, turning the world on its head, so to speak, and bringing an abundance, and providing resilience in areas that just were so shocking, right? We realize fundamentally that in those extreme circumstances that our local community can do this. Our local community, we don't live in we may live in a white desert, okay? I'm not saying you don't live in a white desert, but for most of us, we recognize that we're not in so harsh a climate. We recognize that we can do better. We recognize that we could have a thriving local economy. And it's that promise that opens the door. And it's a mindset shift. It's a growth mindset shift. But this is the most important takeaway. It doesn't happen by accident. So, in other words, all these people who are doing smash and grab with techniques and methods on YouTube, it's like, no, I know permaculture. I'm doing a swale. I've got Hugo culture. I've got. They're just throwing techniques and methods around. That's not how it works. It has to be intentional. You have to understand what does what. We design for success and abundance and resilience. but it comes from having an understanding of design, not methods. Methods are part of good design and implementation, but they're a subset and much lower down in the order of things. So we design and then we create it. We step into those designs and we by being in alignment with nature, we get resilience as a result of an abundance accumulating wisely and properly. And so when we are imitating nature and we're wisely accumulating, it will build. And it's really about letting natural abundance and fertility accumulate as the baseline of permaculture, but it also goes abstractly. I mean, Neil literally said to me when I was struggling with debt and struggling with starting my business 10 years ago, Matt, just build a money swale. He probably remembers that. Neil, if you're watching, thank you. Because I was so mad when he said this, and I don't think I showed, maybe I did. Hard to hide things on my face, that I am who I am. And I was so annoyed. Because it's like a swale is a method. Money is like not water, huh? But now I get it. Now I get it. You got to have a money swale. You got to have a retirement plan. I mean, come on. You got to plan for these things so that you design for a good future. You design for an abundant future, a resilient future, a future that honors and and you find honorable because you did plan, you did prepare, and you're ready. And that lives on as an example to your children, to your peers, to everyone you encounter. Not just in your actual actions, but in your character, in your presence. So whether it's accumulating water so that you can swim in it, accumulating, an abundance so that you can share and revel in it, I know you can do this. I know you can make it happen. So what if we fix the West Coast watersheds? Let's go big with this one, right? Let's go big. Remember, I showed you this picture. This shows all the dams. Notice the dams are all before the green part. This is where the Grapes of Wrath, the flooding was. And in fact, it's the floodplain. And so they knew this was going to happen. If you look along that center line of blue, that floods to the point where they used to paddle up, the grandparents of the students I taught, they used to paddle up all the way to Sacramento and fish all along the way every year. So this is why they removed all that water above, but by removing it all above, they dried out all the foothills and dried up the whole valley and all the wells because they're not directing it back down at a meter or something like that or spreading it, which is what they should be doing. They are actually pulling it off and bringing it down to LA or up to San Francisco. So you have a draining of the landscape. This is all these things are we could fix. So there's the floodplain, and you see the key point up there? That's the first point of deposition, where everything's slowing down, and you can actually capture the water there and spread it out. So now you see it? Right, you see it now. So on a topographic map, it's quite literally we capture the water and then push it out to the sides. We're pushing it out to the drier ridges. So we're allowing the water to absorb in the ground up as high as possible so that it's trapped in the landscape and trickles down through the landscape. And so that's going to recharge the aquifers. It's going to rehydrate the foothills and valleys. It's going to prevent the catastrophic fires. And it's going to take pressure off the system, right? So what if we restore the coastlines? Well, the global oxygen cycle, 66 to 90%, depending on the time of year and where you are, is oxygen from the ocean. So you're like, how can that be? In the middle of winter, there's no photosynthesis. So if you're in Iowa, Montana, it doesn't matter if you're surrounded by pine wood forests. They don't, evergreens don't photosynthesize in winter. So that means your oxygen is basically all coming from the ocean. and mixed with old oxygen from the land. So, and a molecule takes 3 years to go from the southern hemisphere to the northern hemisphere because they're going different directions, right? So, in the way they turn, like or churn, the atmosphere goes different directions. And so we're talking about most of it's coming from the ocean. So we need to think about that. And then most of it's coming from the coastlines. Majority of oxygen generation and majority of life is happening in the coastlines. So the fact that we have dead zones directly impacts our oxygen. The fact that the kelp forest on the west coast died, about 10, 15 years ago, I think it was 10 years ago, right before all those respiratory problems became really bad, they lost the kelp forest up to 90%. That's going to be a the kelp forest releases 10 times the amount, kelp releases 10 times the amount of oxygen, and all aquatic plants release 10 times the amount of oxygen that land plants do. It's just because they don't have any other stressors. They're in a tank of fertility, and so they're way more efficient. So we can restore these things, we can fix these things, but we have to recognize that we're fixing a very real problem. And we could be capturing, the eutrophication and filtering the water and cleaning the water. We can be restoring, uh, like the wave breaks, and we can be restoring the coral reefs, and making it so that we create these still, fertile, and protected areas so that the life comes back. It's really about creating areas that can be nurseries for different types of animals and plants so that these areas can once again become the fertility zones that they are meant to be. And then they'll produce the oxygen and the sequestration of excess nutrients of all sorts that we're really seeking. But we got to build up the base first. So, restoring coastal ecosystems. Number one, ending eutrophication in dead zones. We can do this. That's what the floating gardens and the floating marine permaculture and then the coastline saltwater ag that all of these folks like Neil Speckman are working on. Returning fertility to the land so you can take those things that you grow and bring them back to land and use them as fertilizer. And then you're taking pressure off the system, right? Always we're taking pressure off the system by following permaculture. And then we're restoring higher oxygen levels. We're restoring coastal economies because abundance from these systems is what restores those coastal economies. And then making sure that they're not poisoned, right? Restores those local economies, because then the fish come back. And it's sequestering those harmful chemicals and toxins through the cycling of life that allows those coastal economies to move forward with full integrity. And when they're like, no, our fish are clean. No, our clams are clean. Our clams are the cleanest on the East Coast, cleanest on the West Coast. These kinds of claims are going to give them pride in a way that's congruent with that legacy, congruent with that local community identity that we need to bring back. It's critical, especially for the next generation to be born into or witness the rebirth of. Because if they witness the rebirth of it, oh, whew, it's one thing to be born into it, to know it, to keep it going, but it's another thing to witness it being born. You know what I mean? Because you're going to give them such hope. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. So what if we just brought back nature? What if we did that? We had an abundance. We started doing things that people said are impossible, like that impossible Peruvian corn that they said you can't grow in North America. Well, with a permaculture mindset, you can. And just grow, just grow. So, growing your own food, harvesting and saving water, saving seed and storing food, medicine, fiber, and fuel, taking the pressure off the system. And that's taking pressure off you. It's peace of mind. It's empowerment. It's also demonstrating to those around you another level of being. So if we look up here, it is therefore our only possible decision to withhold all support for destructive systems and to cease to invest our lives in our own annihilation. It is our children's world which is being destroyed. This is the thing that resonated with me. This is like the opening section of the opening chapter of a designer's manual. It's on my desk in the other room. It's so important. Our children's future is at stake. And so that's why I valued this so much because very early on, my wife got cancer. I saw my kids as being threatened by this degenerative system, and I had to find a path of integrity so that I could have a meaningful life to demonstrate and to live in. You got to have that congruency there, you know? And so I know this is all possible. And I want it for you. I know you can do this. Large or small scale, it's possible. So if you want to learn more, stay tuned for the live Q&A, and we'll be doing some giveaways. I've got a few more ding books here to do giveaways with. And join us next week. And in fact, join us further the next week because the Advanced Permaculture Student Online is beginning. It is my advanced certification and regular PDC, Permaculture Design Certification course. It's a double certification. Now, we don't just make the map, we don't just make the design, we make it real. And that certification is what you get for the advanced courses when you make the actually real. So it's a very powerful community. It's the first advanced permaculture design certification. So it's an incredible program. It's the eighth season. This is a powerful community. This is a global community, and yeah. So that's I'll be writing you guys about it. So look for that email, look for those posts, and I hope that you sign up and join us. It's going to be incredible. All right. So next week we're going to be doing Unlock Abundance with the Permaculture Mindset. We're going to be going even further with this. And I keep doing stories, I keep doing diverse stories because I want you to see not just where you could be, I want you to see where other people could be. Because when you see those wild examples that stretch where you thought you could be, you see new angles, new possibilities on what you already wanted to do. So I love showing those examples. I love stretching our minds, using the permaculture mindset because it stays within that congruency. It stays with that integrity, and it is powerful. It is meaningful. Thank you for being here. I'm Matt Powers. Grow abundantly, learn daily, and live regeneratively. All right, all right, guys. What do you think? How was that? Let me know in the comments. All right. Inspiring, says Helen. Joel says, Hey, Joel, good to see you. Says, Great. Caleb says it was great. Julia says, Congruency. Sue Patrick says, Fabulous. Mark says, Thank you, Matt. Christine says, You're awesome, Matt. You're a great teacher. Oh, thank you so much. Well, I appreciate you all for being here. Heather says, Thank you. Great. PJ says, Awesome. Awesome. So, what is one new thing you learned today? And the person who responds, well, I'll choose someone, but please, everyone, respond down below. We've got these dinged ones. You guys see these? So I don't send out dinged books. I don't ever sell dinged books. I get them replaced, or I just give them to people. So we're gonna give these away. So if you want to give a good home to a homeless book, because it needs a home. I always buy dinged books. I don't know about you. I go to the like used bookstores and I'm like, oh, that's scratching the cover on that. Do you realize how rare that is? I will buy you. You'll be home with me. And so like I love books. It's a problem perhaps. But I don't mind them being a little bit dinged, but I don't ever sell dinged books because I really want people to get perfect copies. And that's why I pay for the extra insurance when I ship things. But this is all it is. A tiny ding. So if you want to take one of these $75 books home today, comment below. So what's one thing you learned? Oh my gosh. The resiliency was also a great topic. Oh, thank you, Heather. Thank you. Yeah, I think a lot of people think resiliency and they think, like, well, we need to bunker down here. And they're like, we need ammunition. And like, it's like, no, 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 no. That's not actually long term. You need to think community level. You need to think about your neighbor, your local economy, your community center. Where did those go, right? Where did the community centers go? And we need to be thinking that level because it changes everything. It changes how we behave, how we think, how we interact, how we invest in local economies. Tootsie says, you inspire me to take this bigger than my own yard. I want to help others by making this my career. Yeah, I love it. Chris says, I learned swales can be fun to build and greatly help restore our groundwater. Thank you, Chris. Yes, Karen says your ding book is truly welcome in my home. Learned about the rock dams. Thank you, Karen. All right, Karen, I want to send you a copy. So, Karen, email me at mattpowerssoil@gmail.com. Hey, Mr. Barrier, good to see you here. Hope your son's doing well. So, anyway, good to see you. Caleb says, I learned that hay bales can be used in making check dams and swales and such. Never thought of that. I've seen gabion baskets, not bales. Super neat. Yeah. Ding books are good, says Sue Patrick. Thank you, Sue. California should restore its floodplains. Yes. Yes. It would recharge its aquifers then. Linda says, coastline solutions. The foothills in California and the valleys was so helpful to see, says L. Also, like the LiDAR maps. Yeah, exactly. LiDAR. Exactly, Anne. Thrift store books are my favorite. Yeah. Do as nature does. I agree. Ooh, Patrice. Patrice just said something really good. I'm going to repeat it now. Using nature as a measurement and for assessment. Align with nature. That is exactly it. Well said. Caroline says, create a resilient neighbor swale. Yeah, 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 or neighborhood swale, right? This could be literally a fire break that you share with your neighbors that goes around all your properties in between you and the highway, right? This could be that pragmatic, could be that simple, and especially as a starter, right? Like, what if we shared a? They'll be like, oh, you're going to put it in a fire break? Yeah, thank you, please. What an awesome thing. Resiliency is possible at all scales, says John. Yes, John S. I want to send you a copy of Regenerative Soil. Email me at mattpowerssoil@gmail.com. Thank you for being here. Now, we've talked a lot about the next generation. So, my first course was a K through 12 course for kids and families to do seed saving, gardening, and cooking so that they would see the hands on experience, cradle to grave of seeds and growing and applying these things so that permaculture would be taught in a way that stuck really deep into their minds and experience because it's all authentic learning. They're doing it and then they're growing it, they're saving it, they're eating it, they're planting again. So I have a curriculum and an online course called The Permaculture Student K through 12. It's the first course ever created. It's it's what came before the Advanced Permaculture Student Online. We have the Permaculture Student Online K through 12. So I want those of you who know this could be a gift that you literally I award you right now, but you give to a family. So even if you don't have kids, you can compete in this giveaway. So I'm going to be giving away a full sign up. It's like a $200 sign up to the Permaculture Student Online K through 12 to one of the people who answers in the comments here. What is something you're going to now do? Because we talked about a lot of things. We talked about a lot of actions today. What are you going to now do differently because of today's presentation? Answer down in the comments, and one of you will win a sign up to the K through 12 Permaculture Student Online course that has like a whole every weekly. There's weekly worksheets and everything. And so it's got a whole curriculum for K through 12. And remember, this could be for you, but you also could share it with someone. Make a money swale, says Charles. I love it. Elizabeth says, study more about permaculture. For me, this is so new. Helen says, level pathways with dams and pools. Thank you, Helen. Katie says, I'm going to stop buying pilot pens and get a fountain pen and learn how to make my own regenerative inks. This is amazing. Yes, Katie. Yes. Okay, I want to give it to Katie because that's just as a writer, you better believe I go through ink, and it feels so good to know it's naturally made, and also the fun color. I change the colors up, and it's just I love it. So Katie Casper, you are the winner of the K through 12 online course, and I'm going to give it to someone else too. So email me at mattpowerssoil@gmail.com, and I'm going to sign you up or give it to someone that you give me their email and we do that. But just make sure when you write me that you say that I'm giving you the a K through 12 course. 50 million millimeter mansion says build a house with water. Whoa, yeah. Heather says be more mindful, more resilient, and getting my kids involved. Ooh, yeah, Heather. Yeah. Um, Heather, I want to give you the K through 12 program. I want your kids to be involved too. And my kids are in the actual videos doing the work with me. So it'll be like really good. Your kids will see it and then want to do it. So email me at mattpowerssoil@gmail.com. Let's make it happen. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Thank you for being here. I appreciate you guys so much. And you guys should know my advanced program is actually designed to go from the beginner all the way to advanced. So I start at the very, very beginning. I teach everything over again, but so that you can scale it and build towards the advanced level. So it's the first of many things. I mean, that course, the Advanced Permaculture Student Online, which we'll be talking about more next week, that course it it's got riparian repair, it's got ocean, it's got so many things that no other course ever had in permaculture. It's the first in many, many instances. So when I talk about that, when I bring it up later, just remember that, check it out. I think it could be an incredible opportunity for you. What questions do you guys have? Feel free to go down below and ask. Ha! And goes, any more freebies? We did two courses. We did two books. Almost $1,000 in giveaways so far. So almost 750, not quite 1,000. But thank you for being here. Maybe I'll do more. Let's see what questions you guys have. Maybe I'll get excited. Where do you find out how to make natural ink? There's a bunch of ways to do it. So you could look up the thing that you have. You could look up natural inks, like DIY natural ink. I'll give you a few starters though. Coffee makes great ink. I love the coffee brown. Coffee brown's like an amazing ink. So you just boil down the coffee more and more and more and more concentrated. And remember, most fountain pen ink is water soluble. That's why you get it wet and then it like ruins it and you're like, right? So you can be totally doing this. So natural inks could be made from boiled walnut husks. That's actually pretty beautiful. Black walnut makes a beautiful color. It can be from inky cap mushrooms. That's They make ink from inky cap mushrooms. It's a great black. It stinks horribly though. Coffee doesn't stink, and it makes a beautiful brown. So there's a bunch of different things that you could be doing. All right, and then there's different flowers. When are you visiting the UK? If my wife had her way, it'd be next week. Yeah, yeah. She wants to go every time. She's like, Scotland's nice right now. We're both like mostly Irish and Scottish, so yeah. Let's talk more about money. How to make 100K USD from a quarter acre, Matt, please. So Bruce, the book is The Market Gardener, and it's Jean-Martin Fortier, Jean, Jean Martin, Martin, right? Fortier, Fortier, and he is a celebrity farmer now. He is a reality farming TV show star, and he has many operations, and he has people working for him and doing the things. He's an overseer now, but he's proven the model, and he's helped so many farmers on that smaller scale really figure out just the nitty gritty. It's similar to Curtis Stone, the urban farmer, but Jean Martin was definitely like another level. All right, protocols for better fire resistance written up by you. So I have presentations on this. So after certain fires, I want to say the Cook County fire, was it? Well, at different times I've been brought in to do talks on what to do, and I mean, realistically, the best thing to do is to remove the politicians and the bureaucrats in those positions of power that are preventing us from doing what needs to be done. So the real issue is the red tape and bureaucracy, that is making things more and more fire prone, and so we really need to be able to get in there and fix things. So I've talked many times about it, and I have whole presentations on this, but it's going to take the will of the people rising up against bureaucrats and really forcing them to do what's right, so that we can rehydrate the landscape. Um, that's really what it comes down to, and that's why spreading permacultural understanding, the permaculture mindset, I think is so valuable, so that people can explain and understand to each other and develop that community level cohesion that always intimidates the bureaucrats. So, so yeah, no, many people could be writing exactly what I've taught, because I've been teaching it for years, and other people who like Matthew Trum, you know what I mean, who's you know we basically were born on the same day almost, and we could talk about each other's birthday twins. He's a good friend of mine. He has lost land in fires, and we all know what to do. The problem is that we really need to just do it, instead of what's going on now. So, so, so we again need to create cohesion at a community level and understanding at a community level in order to make change happen. And that's what independence led to the strong democracy. You needed to first to be independent, which means you need resilience at a community level. So this is the well that never runs dry. I feel like I do a fair amount of what you mentioned, but I still barely scratched the surface. Beautiful. I love that. Recommendations for mapping tools to design ponds and swales. LiDAR. I would work with someone who can get you LiDAR maps, and recognize that A, you're going to start with a plan, and then B, you have to know what you're doing so that you can adapt with the real landscape. How to make money swale, laugh out loud. Yeah. It's actually, what a huge part of what I teach at Our Future every year is part of that. I teach like high performance skills, and I also usually do regenerative entrepreneurship intensive out of that. And I'm currently in the middle of one of those. So I do teach people about around that, and I have taught people. I mean, even to this day, I still do private consulting with different people, on that. So so that exists. I mean, if you wanted to write a book, I've got a book writing course. If you want to learn entrepreneurship, I've got regenerative entrepreneurship courses. And in fact, if you sign up for the Advanced Permaculture Student Online, which teaches you how to understand all these things and do all these things, it actually comes as a bonus. So regenerative entrepreneurs experts comes as a bonus with the Advanced Permaculture Student Online. If you guys want, you could head over there now, and let me just show you. If you just go to Advanced Permaculture Student, let me just verify that. Yeah, Advanced Permaculture Student. If you just go there, I just wanted to make sure that I didn't have online in there, though I might actually own that too. So just type in advancedpermaculturestudent.com and you'll be able to sign up and get that bonus with the entrepreneurship course. So it's a $500 bonus, but it's free when you sign up for the course. The course is up to 40%, no, actually up to 60% off. And so you can actually get into this course for only $50 a month. It's an incredible offering, but I really want to get people in so that we can help people get out of the degenerative systems that they're in. And that's why I do these talks. That's why the book that the course is based on is the free 400 plus page ebook you have in the actual first part of this webinar series. So, Grow Your Own Abundance, below it is the 400-page ebook that's for you, which my course is based on. So I really, it's funny. My mentor who taught me about like business and marketing and everything would be like, wait, no, don't do that. Give them a section of it. But I really want you to see the power of these things. I really want you to know. And also, if you can't spend $50 a month, you can still start a business. You can still learn these things. You can still start growing now. And I know a lot of people, it's super hard times. A lot of people, can't even afford, gas, right? People can't even afford food. But that's why it's only $50 a month because most people have that and they can start growing their own food. They can even start developing their own fuel. And the advanced permaculture online is very advanced, okay? We have people who are taking pig fat and turning it into fuel, diesel. So they're running their entire farm equipment off of the pig fat diesel that they make. So everything is actually possible, and we showcase it, and we also show such a diversity. And this time we're gonna have a special guest, William Padilla Brown, joining us, doing the fungi section, which is meaning it's all going to be new. So that section William is providing is going to be live. So you'll be able to ask him questions live. So lots of fun things, lots of awesome things are happening. I hope that you guys join us in that advancedpermaculturestudent.com. And we'll get you that money swale mindset growing and going so that you can start on building that future because it really is possible because the demand is huge. Mark Shepard, when I interviewed him years ago, was like, Matt, I'm telling you right now, just start farming, just start growing whatever it is and do it permaculturally because the market is endless. The demand is endless. We can't grow enough. He was in Organic Valley, remember? He's one of the founding guys. Um, it's endless. The demand is endless. And so this is why you talk about, A2A2 milk, Blake Alexander and Stephanie Alexander, Alexander Farms, the A2A2 milk that you're seeing now. They're the most expensive milk in America and they can't keep up with demand. That's the power of this modality is you literally, because we can test for it and see it and prove it, that it is better, that it is more nutritionally dense because we're in alignment with nature. It's more stable, it's more resilient. We are entering a new age, a new era where people are going to be able to follow the integrity path and make money and design it in such a way that it builds up in the landscape. So wealth is reflected in the landscape, reflected in the business, reflected in their family, reflected in their opportunities and in their money swale. And so they have a savings in retirement, right? So It is all possible. And how do you make a pond if you don't have clay? So, Helen, I don't know if you saw the image where I'm scratching in the video of the clay. The clay is bulletproof. So I didn't seal it. So it's naturally going to wet and soak in, but it's also so much clay that it's going to hold water just fine. But it's not sealed. So it's going to infiltrate into the ground. And I want it to infiltrate into the ground. And as the biologicals start catching up and as the accumulation continues, you're going to have a glaying effect and it will start creating a more and more imper- more and more impermeable, not truly impermeable, but more and more towards impermeable layer so that it holds water longer, it lets water through more slowly, but it will always have that connection. And it's good. We want that connection because what happens is the ponds then tell you when the water in the landscape is dipping. The ponds then tell you the actual health of your well. In an area where your well is 30 feet deep, your ponds are 20 feet deep, and you're recharging everything, and everything's like sand. You can see these things. So it's real great question. Um, and it will seal on its own in time. I want it to be slow, and I want it to fill up the landscape behind it. Sweet. Billy Van Kuren in the comments says, depending on your region, I might know drone operators that are doing mapping in your area. Wow, thank you so much. How does the Cal Fire bare earth defensible space affect fire safety? So on one hand, if you have a spillway that's grassy, that can be that bare earth, but it's always more moist and it's grasses, right? Um, you could in times that are bad have that spillway, have a release of water from a pond upward, so you actually have that spillway wet itself, so that when the fire does approach, it's wet, right? And wet ground and wet plants, they don't burn. As we have seen over and over again. I don't know if you guys have watched the fires in California. There are people who are like, look, we just kept it wet and we got through. So regardless of whether they are permacultural or not, they're adding water. They have water. There's something there that's keeping it wet enough. So that's one way. But now the other way is, let's say you literally have your swales and everything, and you have some water in the landscape. You have some watering capability, but you're on the low end. You're like, it's pretty dry. What if you mowed that whole area between the final two swales, the wide open space we're talking about, the spillway space, the grassy knoll area? You can actually mow it down, and you can mow it down to like stubble, and you can pre-burn it. So you can go out there, you know what I mean, where you have make sure you have someone backing you up with water hoses close by, but then you can be using, your little torch, and you can be burning that area because it's stubble now. And if you wet around the edges, it won't go past that because the flames can't get high because it's stubble. It's just about wind, right? If you have wind, you can be sending that everywhere and it could be real trouble. But you can, because I mean, we've seen this before. You guys have seen this in Australia. They do some crazy stuff over there. They're like, "Oh, I'm gonna backburn this. I'm gonna make sure you don't cross me." And you're like, "This guy's amazing," And so we can use fire to prevent fire. We can use water and plants to prevent fire. Cal fire is just bare earth is kind of bonehead. Is just kind of bonehead, and also because there's no like thinking about, you know what I mean. I mean, we have things that are like the heat. We have things that fires that are passing through the seams in the ground. You have fire that like tunnels and then like pops up areas through the ground. Um, it's really about keeping things more wet. It's really about making it so that you can control the tempo of things, the intensity of things, and just bare earth as like the way to do it around houses. In my experience, it makes the houses like bone dry, makes everything around it bone dry, and huh, let's not mute me. I am the host, I thought. Well, anyway, what I was saying was that ground squirrels are notorious in this area, and works like tunnels with air, and it sucks and pulls. And so, my grandma's house, even though they thought they were doing the right thing, and Mike's probably listening to this right now, uh, that house is in danger because there's all those ground squirrel holes all around it, and everything's dried out. As soon as the fire comes around all the edges, it's going to send the fire through those things like like chimney spouts, and it's going to then potentially cause fire to still reach it. So I really, and it will definitely cause the fire to reach the roots and start burning out the roots of any of the trees that are nearby that are, you know what I mean, that have all had their ground cover removed. So I do think that it's not a regenerative response. Hope your son's doing well. Can a small pond be made on flat land? Absolutely. When you got flat land, it allows you to create structure and create earthworks and create change and contour. So you can do it. You can make it. Com- Thank you. Community level cohesion, rehydrating landscapes. Yes. Um, for me, I am shooting to do all I can with private land where the politicians who are messing stuff up with less power for no one. I'm working on launching a Palawian timber plantation run as a silver pasture. Limit the need for to fell timber and healthy forests that way, but hopefully be able to encourage healthy thinning to limit fire risk too. Just a dream right now, but I've got nursery stock growing. Excellent. Thank you so much, Caleb. Yeah, we really need to remember what was said, by the first people, from Europe that documented when they came over. The forests were such that you could ride a horse like at full speed through. So the trees were so tall, and they'd done what Darren Doherty talks about, where you trim up like 18 feet. And so the fires can pass through and it's all thinned out. So you can like ride a horse through in a group through the forest. That's older forest. So it's a very different, almost park like and surreal kind of landscape that they're talking about. It was a garden. They garden the woods. And so it's very permacultural, but it's also very hands on. And so that 90s conception of don't touch it, um, really goes out the window. Just like with the, I don't know if you guys have recently followed the whole thing against, the people who are like native plant folk. They're like, oh no, native soil, do nothing, do nothing. And meanwhile, the invasives have changed the soil quite dramatically. Meanwhile, the the actuality is that we have so much dryness, so much oxidation that you just don't have the microbes supporting those plants any longer. So we really need to recognize that pH is also moisture, and all these things. And so it really takes that permacultural view, that seeing through succession, that takes it to the next level. When does native start for an area? Well said, Billy. All these plants are invasives. Like, the Douglas fir pine is an invasive that we just empowered, right? So, so yeah, yeah, it's really, really important. It's okay. Thank you for being here. It's okay, Rich. So funny. Great questions. Great, great. You guys are having so much fun in the comments here. Kangaroo bacon. Oh my word. How to build a soil that will hold nutrients and water. I've had tons of organic matter, but it's still not very productive. Yeah, so early on, like 10 years ago, we had this concept that we just add the compost and then we've got the soil. We got the organic matter level. The numbers there, we won. Why isn't it good yet? Oh, well, all of us were putting in hot compost, which was pH 8, right? Uh-oh. And then it was all unstructured. So in other words, there was no structure to the actual soil because the organic matter you're adding is not structured by the microbes yet, by the roots yet. So the organic matter addition into the soil organic matter actually develops fastest with plant roots and exudates. So it's faster that way than adding compost because it adds it in structure. It's structured as it adds it. It makes sense, right? So if we want to build up our soil, adding organic matter, adding tons per acre, folks are having trouble with that model. Okay. Particularly because it's not keyed to their soil, and secondarily because they're not doing everything else. So having the right mixture of cover crops that are crimped down and then interplanted into is going to have a lot more power than just adding like hot compost into the soil. And it may seem counterintuitive. You're like, but it's soil organic matter, the number. It's a number. But that's an abstraction from the reality of there's lack of structure. You need the structure for the function. So that's what I would say. Step into regenerative soil. L, I want to send you this book, Regenerative Soil. This will be a complete game changer. That'll be the third book of the day. Thank you for being here. L, email me at mattpowerssoil@gmail.com. I almost said it like my original email when I was a kid. mattpowerssoil@gmail.com. And I'm going to get you that book. It'll be my gift. And it'll be a game changer for you. It'll provide the perspectives, the understanding, the knowing that will give you the ability to go into that next level of expression in your soil. I appreciate you all being here, and this was so much fun. We did 3 book giveaways, 2 course giveaways, and we're going to be starting next week with an incredible webinar, and then we're going to be going into the launch for the Advanced Permaculture Student Online. Please check out advancedpermaculturestudent.com and see if the program's right for you. We've had over 1,200 students, and it's been transformative for so many people all over the world. Different scales, different walks of life, different focuses and niches. It's all there for you. I'm Matt Powers. Grow abundantly, learn daily, and live regeneratively. And I will see you guys next time. Thank you for an amazing day.
Thank you.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you, Matt. This is awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you, Matt.
Thanks.